Simply put, to educate oneself is to prepare oneself for what you are aiming at. If you want to be an archer, practice archery. You want to be a chemist, practice chemistry. Likewise, whichever field you choose to excel into, you have to study that topic to educate. Education, spiritually speaking, is to unload oneself from all sorts of knowledge. Gayatri Mantra also talks about that. Om Bhurбhuvaः Swaha Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. We don't really understand what they all mean until we really experience it. True education to me is to bring about that worth in us by reciting certain principles, thermodynamics, reciting certain laws of certain countries, repeating certain laws related to quantum physics. They don't lead us anywhere. You become very informative, but nothing more than that. Even the guys who have built all these principles, so-called, even persons like great Heisenberg, who formulated that principle of uncertainty. Many of you are familiar since you are in the academic arena. His famous principle is that position and the speed of the electron, they cannot be measured at the same time. If you measure the position, you will not know the speed. If you can know the speed, you will not know the position. Why? What is so mysterious about it? Let me explain to you. Suppose when you drink water, your tongue tastes the water. When you smell a beautiful rose flower, your nose understands this is a rose flower. But can the rose understand my nose? Can water understand my tongue? Objects cannot understand my senses. My mind can understand the senses. Can my senses understand my mind? My intellect can understand the mind. Can my mind understand the intellect? Likewise, it goes on and on and on until we reach the frontier we call God. The reason why we can never ever understand God or can grasp God is because we are grosser than the subtlest being. If you had the measuring beam, measuring the electron, subtler, more refined than the electron itself, then you could have measured the speed and the position at the same time. But there is nothing that can be said today as subtler than the electron. When you bombard an electron, to measure the electron, it is bound to change its position or the speed. If I say I understand God, that means you are much above God, and that can never happen. Educating oneself from that perspective is to become subtler and subtler, more and more refined at an inner level. And that only means, in the words of Swami Vivekananda, I would say, your consciousness is now expanding, evolving. To educate oneself means to help one evolve in the field of consciousness. How? What is consciousness? Consciousness is all about the degree of awareness. You can simply define it like that. It's a degree of awareness. By that, it also means degree of unawareness. Now, if we strictly abide by this definition, there too we fail, so we have to add something more. Suppose you become aware that your old man, your father, is sick, or he's having a headache. This is awareness. You became aware of his pain. Is it enough? What is your next step? Whether you are able to cure or heal him from his pain or not. But you have to have some action, from a response from your side. So awareness, becoming aware is not enough. There has to be a next step to it. Then it completes the cycle. So it's a degree of awareness with a measured, appropriate response. What is consciousness made up of? We cannot say. But we can say what influences my consciousness. And that's where heartfulness comes into picture. How our thoughts, our attitude changes the level of perception and the responses. And our responses are tailor-made by our own attitudes, our upbringing, our samskars, our environment, how they all come together and changes my responses. So it only says that if I was not indoctrinated by any community or any religion, then my responses would have been appropriate and just right. We are all conditioned by our upbringing. So to my mind, education also means decondition ourselves. How we remove the burden of this conditioning, how to get out of this indoctrination from within. So we can say, your thinking also changes your consciousness. Our Shastras, and especially Vasistha Yoga Sutras, they talk highly about consciousness. For your information, if we have to judge what kind of culture existed during Lord Rama's time, what was their fancy, what were they talking about all the time, I can safely conclude they were all busy dissecting, discussing things on consciousness. If you see great Vasistha, Vishwamitra and all those guys discussing, composing, what was the main theme of their subject? Consciousness. If Lord Rama and Lakshman and Mother Sita, they were going in forest, what was their main topic of discussion? Consciousness. You can find that in Lakshman Gita and Rama Gita. What was the dialogue between Ashtavakra and Raja Janak? Again, it's on consciousness. You can find that from Ashtavakra Gita. So you can see different locations, different individuals, and not just ordinary individuals, kings and rishis, and people, ordinary people like Sabri, and that boat person, I don't recollect the name, but you see, they are all talking of consciousness. It's always affected by three things: manas, buddhi and ahankar. How to evolve consciousness? You regulate these three things, manas, buddhi and ahankar. To regulate these three things, again, as I said, meditation is the key. There is another process in heartfulness way of practice is to refine oneself, get rid of this conditioning, and I arrived at a naked state of my soul, pure, immutable, simple. This process we call it as cleaning. And to connect with the divine and say, Thou art the real goal and Thou art everything in my life, that reminds you that you are nobody in this equation. That puts you in a place. Your ahankar is subdued. Every day, little by little, little by little. So these three things are somehow tamed. So taming of all this and arriving at a purer level of consciousness, spiritually speaking, that's a real education. Education such institutions provide, they're all informative at best. But they're necessary for our survival. Our material existence, Bhautik Jivan, is based on how we succeed and come out from such institutions. It's necessary element to our existence. But while we are at it, nothing can stop us from developing our spiritual wisdom, our spiritual being. That should go hand in hand. Like a bird flying with two wings. Bird can never fly with one wing, and so is our human life. Most of the agitation and stress, and they're all the results of this imbalance in spiritual and material world.